Hey guys, welcome back. It's the middle of June and I thought it would be a great time to do a June garden tour. Now this is the first garden tour of the season, and now that all of our seedlings are planted, I think this is the perfect time to take a walk around the garden and show you what's happening and also do a bit of harvesting. But before we get started, if you're new here, hi, my name is Marsha the Blackthumbgardener and I live in Ontario, Canada, Zone 5B, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe, and if you're returning, welcome back, and thank you so much for supporting my channel. Now let's get started. Now for those of you who are new, I do have a small backyard garden. It's not big at all, but trust me, I pack a punch, and I consider this a working kitchen garden. This is a place I go to every day to harvest herbs, vegetables, leafy greens, even flowers for my own personal use. I'm going to give you a view from the entrance because I just added this arbor and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now we did add this walkway recently and also extended the raised bed garden, and I figured this trellis is the perfect entrance, creating a separate garden room to the main raised bed garden. One of the things I'm loving right now as you enter into the raised bed garden is seeing these peonies. Now I wanted to do this garden tour now because I think these peonies are going to be out of bloom soon, and I just love the look of them. They're just gorgeous. Like, look at this. Absolutely divine. Every time the peonies show out, I'm just in love, and it smells incredible here. These peonies smell so good. Every year I go to the peony show in my city and I look at all the peony varieties, look at the competition, and it gives me a good overview of what I like and what I don't like in a peony. And each year I pick up a new peony and add it to the garden, and then I forget the name like years later. I didn't go this year and I'm kind of sad about that, but I don't have any more space in my garden to add any more peonies. In this in-ground garden bed beside the peonies, I also have a few other shrubs here, but this hosta, guys, this hosta it's just looking so fresh and green and gorgeous. Like, this entire corner right now is just giving life. Like, it's just, I can't describe it, but anytime I walk by the garden and see this corner right here, the layers, the textures, the color, it's just beautiful, more than what I anticipated coming from this garden bed. Even down here, the cat's pajamas, just the color of the cat's pajamas with the peony, just, I don't know, it's just gorgeous. So last year I actually divided this hosta, so it wasn't doing well last year at all, and I put part of this hosta in the front garden bed. The only problem is I probably should have divided it in the fall and not in the spring. I actually saw another creator do that and I was like screaming at the TV, don't do it, don't do it, because the hosta suffered all season long and the hosta in the front suffered, but both of them have recovered and they're both looking fantastic, and I'm happy they both survived, but it was a struggle for a little while. So if you are planning to divide a hosta, do it in the fall. Don't do it in the spring or summer, or your hosta will not do well that season. This is an overview of what the raised bed garden looks like right now. So in this space, I have about 6 raised beds that I grow mainly vegetables in. We're going to go through each raised bed so you can see what I'm growing right now and which seeds I've started. Now, I did post a video on seeds you should start in June, and I'll share that down below so you can see what you should also be planting in your garden this month. So this first raised bed right here was supposed to be all garlic, and only half of the raised bed is currently filled with garlic because the cloves were not doing that well when I planted them. Some of them were starting to rot, but I planted the ones that I thought looked healthy, but only half of this bed came up. So I think the cloves just ended up rotting in the soil. I'm still happy though. I do have pretty much 1.5 beds full of garlic, and a lot of the scapes are starting to come in, so I do need to do some scape harvesting today. But other than that, I decided because this bed only was filled partially with garlic, I did put some onions in between. And I also added a lot of squash plants around it because squash is a great companion plant with garlic and onions. Any member of the allium family is great with squash. So what I did is on the ends, I planted some pumpkins, and my hope is that they cascade out into the expanded section of the raised bed garden. I also have over here another pumpkin variety that my hope is that it will expand outwards. And then I have some cucumbers that I added to this trellis, along with a squash variety called Uchiki Red Curry. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw some cucumbers growing. Let's go around. Oh, here we go. I don't know if you can see that. So now on to the second raised bed that we're going to look at. In this raised bed, in early spring, we planted a lot of our spring crops like radishes, lettuce, spinach, arugula. I still have the spinach in this bed. I have cilantro in this bed. That's still doing okay. We have onions that we planted along the side. I did do a big harvest recently, and so now we've put in our determinate tomatoes in the middle. Now last year I had a lot of determinate tomatoes because I wanted a ton of pasta sauce, and I quickly realized that because these plants are so productive, I had more tomatoes than I could can. Like, I was still canning up until recently. And so this year I decided only to put 2 determinate tomato varieties, and the variety name is called Plum Regal. I absolutely love this variety. It's so productive, great for making sauce with. It's a plum or Roma tomato. So on the other side of this raised bed, not a lot is happening, but I did start a few things from seed. We already have basil and marigolds here in the middle, but I've already started some more basil plants from seed, and they've already come up. And then on the side here, I have some carrots that I've started from seed. I love growing carrots, and it's probably one of the easiest things that you can grow in the garden as long as you know how to germinate the seeds. And then on the corners, I've added our mystery seed from the last video, which is callaloo or amaranth, and they've already come up on each side. So moving on to the third raised bed, this is my garlic bed, guys. I am so happy. I cannot wait to harvest all of this garlic this season. Now you can see that the scapes have finally formed. Now, when they curl like this is the ideal time to harvest your scapes. I have harvested them early in the past when it gets to this point, but at this point, the scape is going to continue growing and you're going to have to come in and harvest it again. So I like to wait until my scapes have curled. This is the ideal time right here when it's done at least like 1 loop. Because after this loop, what's going to happen is the scape is going to start to go straight, and that means it's going to go to flower, and you don't want that to happen. You want the energy to go into your bulb. So by removing the scape, it sends a signal to the plant that it needs to focus on the roots rather than trying to grow the flower at the top. So if you have garlic that you're growing this season, hardneck garlic specifically, then you need to harvest your scapes. So once my garlic is out of the garden, what I'm going to be adding here are beans. Now we've already started some beans together in my last video. I think we started Goliath bush beans, if I'm not mistaken. But in this area, I'm going to be adding a lot of my black beans that I ordered. I'm really looking forward to growing black beans this year. So this is where they're going to go as soon as the garlic is harvested. I'm going to head back to the last raised bed, and I'll get to all the containers around the garden. In this raised bed, we have all of our spring crops still. You can see we have our sugar snap peas. And I need to do a bit of harvesting. These are snow peas. I also interplanted some beans, so you can see the beans here. They're starting to form. I also have some cucumbers in here. I have some lettuce that I desperately need to harvest. I have some beans that we started from seed in the last video. And then I have some nasturtiums on the side. So this bed has pretty much a jumble of a whole bunch of different things together. On the ends in the container, I have some alyssum because I started so much alyssum from seed, and alyssum is great to have in your garden. They bring a lot of the beneficial insects once they start to bloom. I also added these plants here. Now we started these from seed together. This is the Mexican torch sunflower. It has this beautiful bright orange flowers. I'm really looking forward to this. This plant gets big, so I decided to put it in its own container. I don't know if putting two plants together was a great idea, but I did it anyways. And then over here, I'm just picking this up. I just realized this fell. I'm gonna tuck it underneath. Oops, there we go. And then over here we have the same thing. So I have two Mexican torch sunflowers. And then I also have some alyssum. And this alyssum is not white, it's purple alyssum. Before we look at the other raised beds, I want to give you a view of what this back garden bed looks like right now. Now, earlier in the season, we had a beautiful show of daffodils. Since then, I've cut back all of the leaves, and now we have pretty much our perennial / annual garden bed here. Now, as I mentioned before, when we did a lot of the seeds starting in March Mayhem, a lot of the seedlings ended up here, so they're still growing, but I'll walk through what we have planted here. This is the first garden bed that I created when we first moved into this house. I want to say like 9 years ago. And since then it's evolved, and there have been so many plants I've put here, but I think it's finally where I want it to be. And I'm hoping some of the seeds I started that are perennial will continue to grow in this space. The first plant that we have here was a new addition last year. I bought a bunch of clearance plants, and this is a Weigela. I think it's a tuxedo Weigela. It's just starting to bloom. So this plant is totally new to me, but I just love having a pop of white in the garden. Now in this corner is where I planted a lot of the seedlings that we started together. So you can see here, there's a trio of plants. These plants, these ones here, are called echinops. So this is globe thistle. And then behind that, you can't really tell from the weeds versus the plant, but the lighter ones are poppies. So I have a lot of my poppy varieties back here. I also have a dahlia here, and I can't remember which variety it is. And you can see back here, some of the poppies are starting to bloom. Down here we have some alliums, and they won't bloom until later on in the season. So this is what you're seeing is more of my spring display. So I have some nepeta that I divided over the years, and I just kept planting along the border. And in between the nepeta this year, I started a lot of aster from seed. So I think this is powder puff aster. And I decided to plant it in between a lot of the nepeta. I think that's gonna look really cute. Or at least when the nepeta, I have to cut it back and it's out of bloom, at least there'll be something else that's taking its place. Back here, we have a clematis. I love this little trellis. I picked it up from Costco years ago. And I have this clematis here. I think it's Viva Polonia by Proven Winners. This won't bloom until the end of the month. And right in front of the clematis, we have my favorite rose of all time. This is Olivia Rose Austin. I ordered this as bare root from David Austin years ago online, and it's just flourished in my garden. Now, this one, the blooms will only last until the Japanese beetles come in, and once they come in, I tend to clip all the rose blooms just because it attracts them. As we continue to move through the garden, behind the fountain, we have probably one of the most cost-effective plants to grow from seed, and that is echinacea. I started these plants from seed years ago, and it just keeps coming back every single year. The goal in my garden is to try to start a lot of my perennials as much as I can from seed, and that way it just stays in the garden, and now you have something that you started yourself that keeps coming back every year. I find this is probably the cheapest way to grow a garden yourself from seed, and then I just fill it in with other shrubs like roses, peonies that I, buy over the years. And I tend to buy a lot of this stuff on clearance. I have a video from last fall, where I bought a ton of clearance plants, and a lot of those plants are currently in my garden bed. Speaking of clearance plants, I also have the hydrangeas that we picked up on clearance that are planted here. There are 3 of them. And then in between, I do have some more things that we started from seed. We have some Gomphrena here. This is Lavender Lady Gomphrena that we started together from seed. And I also have, you can't really see it here, I'll try to get closer. I have another Zinger hibiscus here, and I have one on the other side. Because these plants grow so big and they tend to grow later in the season, I decided to put them in my garden beds because I really had no other space for them. For the Zinger hibiscus, a few years back, I grew them in a container and they were in full sun and they did really well, but I don't have a lot of space in my garden. I think I started way too many flowers from seed. So I put them in my garden beds to see how they would do this year. They seem to be growing okay. Let's see if they make it to maturity by the end of the season. That was one of the things I committed to myself this year, that I would try to use more of my in-ground gardens to grow things that I would normally grow in raised bed, things like herbs. This is the only tea herb or tea flower that I'm putting in my garden bed. Everything else I've been able to tuck into my raised bed or into my green stock. Moving on, let's take a look at another raised bed. And this one is over here. Now there are 2 tall raised beds that my husband built. And I love these raised beds because they're at waist height, so it's very easy to garden in them. So in these 2 raised beds, they're pretty much planted the same way. This one has hot peppers. So we planted these together, and look at them. They're looking so good right now. Look at these hot peppers. They're in full sun, so they're loving their life. I added more drip irrigation so they get more water. I have oregano on the end. I still have beets. I have thyme in the back here that's already started to flower. I have some carrots that we just thinned, and I also have onions here. Just to quickly go through some of the varieties that we have here. We have Thai chili peppers. I put in a paprika pepper. It's not really hot or sweet, but I just put an extra one there. I have an early jalapeno, 2 of them. I have more Thai chili peppers. This is my favorite. This is Scotch bonnet. More Scotch bonnet. I think this is a habanero that is not doing that well this year. The Arapaho cayenne pepper, if you want cayenne powder. And I think that's it. On this trellis that we added years ago, I have 2 tomatoes, and I also have a watermelon here. I don't know if you can see that. This is Sugar Baby Watermelon. And then these tomato varieties, I think one is called Sun Gold. So this one over here that's already starting to flower is Sun Gold. And then this one right here, the tag is buried somewhere. I don't know the name of it. So this year I planted Sun Gold. There's a grape tomato variety that I don't remember the name of. I planted Posano, Pink Berkeley tie-dye, and I also planted the Plum Regal. Yeah, I planted the Plum Regal. So there's only a handful of varieties that I planted this year, but I had a few plants that I scattered around the garden. Now in the middle right here, I have some potatoes. So not only at the end do I have sweet potatoes, but I also have just regular potatoes here. I can't remember the varieties that I planted, but I did pick up seed potatoes from the garden center, and I'm pretty sure I planted these in March, I want to say. You can see that they're already flowering, so it's almost time to harvest. Once the plant starts to die down, then we'll do a harvest together. So in this raised bed, we have more tomatoes. You can see I have it weaved through the trellis. We have all of our sweet peppers here. So this is where we have our sweet banana pepper. We have King of the North. We have a sunset mix variety. You can see this one is already flowering back here. We also have this new one from West Coast Seed. This is the candy cane chocolate coated chocolate cherry. I keep forgetting. And then we also have the same thing as the other bed. So we have beets, carrots, and onions. And then I also have alyssum on the side. I love the alyssum that was in this corner last year, so I wanted to repeat it. It's honestly fulfilling to watch this entire garden flourish, especially because of the fact that we started all of these plants from seed together. Just seeing the garden full, lush, and green is just fantastic in June to see. I can't wait till I see more color. A lot of my flowers haven't bloomed yet. So when things start to pop and the color starts to come in, stay tuned for my July garden tour because it's going to be a special one. So along the back, I added some containers. My goal with expanding the raised bed garden area was so that I can have more space to garden. I didn't want to add another raised bed, but I wanted to add some containers or have the flexibility to add containers to the space. So I have 4 containers along the back. This one is filled with squash. So I have butternut squash and I also have another Uchiki red curry plant. And planted along with it, I have some nasturtiums, and I also have some marigolds. When I plant a lot of my crops, I try to put their companions with them as well. The nasturtium and marigolds are great companion plants with squash. Now, beside the squash plants, I also have some sweet potatoes. There are 2 containers filled with sweet potatoes. This variety, I believe, is a purple sweet potato. And then over here is your regular store-bought sweet potato. Now, I grew these slips on my own. Pretty easy to grow your own sweet potato slips. I am really looking forward to this crop right here. And the last container that we have here, I just added because I had way too many tomato plants. So I have 2 indeterminate tomato varieties. The first one is Posano, and the second one is, I believe it's the pink Berkeley tie-dye tomato that I'm trying out this year from West Coast Seeds. You can see I planted some marigolds, and I think tucked in there I also have some basil. I don't know if you could see that. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to head out of the garden, just giving you a view of what the trellis arc looks like from this part of the garden. You can see the pathway that we built together leading out. So now I'm going to focus on this raised bed right here because we have a lot of work that we need to do in this space. This is a 9-foot Vago raised garden bed, and I put this on the side away from the rest of my raised bed garden because this bed gets afternoon shade but morning sun. It's the perfect place to put brassicas because we've been getting some really hot weather. Now the weather has cooled down to what I consider normal temperatures, but when the temperatures heated up, I found that last year putting my brassicas in the main raised bed garden was a big mistake because they bolted pretty quickly over there. But I found that putting them in this space in afternoon shade makes a huge difference. We're going to unveil this bed and take a deeper look. So I packed this raised bed garden with all of my brassicas. I have quite a few varieties of broccoli here, and what we're going to harvest today is this Asperbrock broccolini. It's starting to flower already, And with this one, you have to be really quick because the maturity date is, I think, under 60 days. You can see this one's already starting to flower. So you have to be pretty quick with harvesting it. It's a broccolini variety. I do have my other broccoli varieties here that are starting to head. I have some cauliflower in here. I think that's in the middle. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, this is new, guys, for me. I haven't seen this at all. There we go. I have some weeds in here that I definitely need to pull up. I've had this covered the entire time so that the cabbage worm doesn't get access to them, but I haven't actually seen them flying around anywhere, so let's hope they don't show up. I have some lettuce at the bottom. Ooh, I have a radish here that I didn't catch. Oh, my bad. So it looks like we're harvesting some radishes today too. And I have a bunch of kale here as well. I have some Brussels sprouts, some dill that I started from seed here, over here. And I also have some asparagus that's somewhere in this bed that I cannot find right now. I love growing dill with brassicas. They're a great companion plant with brassicas. And I do want to tuck in a few more things here. I think I also have spinach in between somewhere, but I can't find it right now. But anyways, this is what the bed looks like. So let's harvest all of our broccolini's right now. I have all of these broccolini stems. Now, I love growing broccolini because number one, it's very quick to mature. So it's probably one of the first broccoli or one of the first brassicas I harvest every season. The second reason is that they are delicious, grilled, stir-fried. They are sweet. I find broccolini is pretty sweet. So I find this is an all-around great plant to grow, especially if you're new to growing broccoli. I find broccoli has a little bit more difficult to grow, but if you want to grow broccoli or want to get introduced to growing broccoli, then growing broccolini is a great way to start. Especially if you're not a fan of broccoli, broccolini is a great plant to grow. So let's put this in the basket. Now I'm not going to take down the plant. There are still a few heads there that are still coming up. So I'm going to let this plant continue to grow. And then most likely when we take down our main broccoli plants, then we'll take down the broccolini. But before we go, I need to also grab some kale. So I have two kale varieties here. This is lacinato kale. And then over here, I have red boar kale. So I'm going to grab some lacinato kale. Oops. I'm thinking about dinner tonight. I'm going to grab one more stem. Actually, maybe two more. Get some of the older stems. The thing I love about having a kitchen garden is that I don't need to harvest everything in bulk. Sometimes I will because I need to clear the space or it's time for the crop to be harvested in full. But a lot of times what you don't see behind the scenes is me coming into the garden barefoot or with pajamas or with a cup of coffee or with a suit sometimes, and just grabbing what I need in that moment from the garden. It could be flowers, it could be veggies, it could be herbs, it could be anything, it could be leafy greens. I just grab what I need from the garden when I need it, and I love that. I have my own grocery store in my backyard garden. And that's it, guys. My June garden tour is done. Let me know if you were inspired by anything in the garden or if you have questions about anything that you saw in my garden. I am so happy with how the garden has evolved over time, and there is so much to harvest on a daily basis. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.